Hello and welcome to the Woodridge podcast series. I'm David, or Dave if you prefer, from audioprojectcentral.com, and I'm proudly hosting this series which has the goal of bringing you informative and uplifting character profiles of some of the teachers, staff members and students at the school. The guest for this episode is Mr. Tyrone Scholtz, who is an Afrikaans teacher at the school. The interview kicks off with Mr. Scholtz telling us a bit about the journey that took him to Woodridge and also about his role there. Please remember to press the like button on whichever platform you are using to access this episode, and do share the episodes on your social media with your friends and family. You can find out more about Woodridge by visiting www.woodridge.co.za, and you can pop in at the Woodridge College and Preparatory School Facebook page too.
My wife and I, we have 3 kids. And my wife is also working at the school. She's actually a qualified nurse, ICU specialist, and I could convince her actually to move to Woodridge College. Before we came to Woodridge, we were actually in Grahamstown. I taught there at Kingswood College for 11 years, and she worked at Settlers Hospital there. So she got a post here in PE at one of the hospitals, but eventually I could actually convince her to apply for this sanatorium nurse here at the school. So she's working at the SAN. I'm actually teaching Afrikaans in the school. We actually arrived here in 2019 during the second term. And then I started to get involved in the Afrikaans department. I'm also involved I'm assistant housemaster at one of the boys' boarding houses. And then I'm also a rugby coach during the winter season. And then during the summer, I'm an athletics coach.
And everyone's favorite question, is there anything about you that none of your colleagues and students know about you that you'd be happy to tell us all?
15 years ago, I was involved at one of the churches, and they actually used me as one of the ministers to exercise, the marriages. So I was involved marrying couples, and as well as obviously at funerals, I had to do those type of jobs. I mean, those are the things that I never actually talk about.
When was the last time you married a couple?
David, that was about 10 years ago when I moved from PE to Grahamstown, and then it actually stopped because I was only involved at the church here in PE doing that.
Any highlights? Do they stand out for you at your time in Woodridge so far?
Getting involved with the pupils in a sense of, it's in a different way at my previous employment. I think here we almost like 24 hours involved with the pupils in their lives. And especially, this is totally different. I wasn't involved with something like this where the nature year round, the pupils loving it, enjoying it, and making use of this. To be very honest, I am an outdoor person, but actually when I arrived here, I actually realized that I'm actually very far from being an outdoor person, because we're always involved with outdoor activities, camping, taking the pupils for rides, hiking, and all those things. So I think the highlight is that I must admit, I told my wife, I actually feel like starting all over again, with my teaching career, even with my sports. It's actually a real new adventure for me here at the school. So, yeah, I think that is one of the highlights, being at a stage where I feel I only starting my teaching career, being involved in a holistic way of the pupil.
A teacher who's still learning, the best kind of teacher. That's fantastic. So when you find yourself in the proverbial deep end, do you have any tips or tricks that you draw upon to wade over to the shallower end, or re-asked, what do you do when the going gets tough?
David, what I usually do, by nature, I'm actually a very calm person, especially in my faith. I really trust God, especially when things around me, if it gets tough, if it's chaotic, I will always be calm knowing that I can actually trust God that He will help me through or give me wisdom to get through the situation. I was in many, many situations where it seems to me there was no way out. And every time when I call on God just to give me wisdom and to help me through it, then He was faithful to get me through it. So yeah, when I really experience difficult times, I trust God just to help me through it.
How do you think Woodridge adds value not only to the lives of pupils, but to parents and guardians as well?
In any decision making, we will always hear we must obviously consider the parents, we must try to help the parents. And parents, they are always informed, well informed, way before the time about activities, what we expect of them, what the school expects of them. I must say, if I compare Woodridge with my previous employment, I never experienced this actually. There it was about the teachers and parents had to accept what the school decided. Woodridge is really, they really consider the parents all their ways in every decision that they make. It's always, we must always hear, we need to consider the parents, we need to understand what they're going through. So in that way, I must say, David, that I don't think if I had to be a parent, I don't think that I would have any complaints about the school not considering us.
A more conceptual question now. How do you make sense of what you do as a teacher and assistant housemaster? How do you frame what you do?
For me, in everything, as a teacher, as a colleague, as a assistant housemaster, as a coach, relation building is very, very important to me. And whatever I do, first, I will always try to ask myself the question, how can I contribute to building a positive relationship between me and either the parents, between my colleagues, or the pupils, or the boys in the boarding house. I usually focus on trying to go that way to build positive relationships. It actually helps me because I learn what you have said earlier is so true. As a teacher, we never stop learning. I think that actually gave me the opportunity also in the past to grow as a person. Because it's not just about the position, about the role that I'm assistant house person. The pupils or the boarders must listen to me. There's no option. They must do whatever I say. No, I rather follow the way where I can try to win them over, building relationship. At my previous school, I was housemaster of about 50 boys. And I think there the challenge also was big in the sense of they came from all over the world. So they came from different backgrounds, different cultures, and I had to try to bring them all together. And I used to tell my wife, it starts with me. Try first that they can actually trust me, feel safe in my presence, and feel like that I'm the parent there in the boarding house. And that is what I usually try to do, is try to get to a position where I can build the type of relationships with whoever I get in touch with.
There is a saying that goes more or less, may you live in interesting times. Sometimes it's offered as a blessing. Sometimes it's offered as a curse because interesting times can be challenging times. So in your opinion, if I may ask, what is the most interesting aspect of our interesting times right now and why?
At the moment, it's very challenging, David, because I don't think any one of us expected this. So there was no way for us to prepare for this. And I think what I usually actually tell the pupils, I said to them that what we're going through is new to all of us, and we need to try and see how we can manage this by not losing each other, by not losing our faith, with losing by death, family members, friends. How can we still stay positive? I think the one thing that I actually during this time realized is that This is a challenge where I must actually ask myself, eventually when we're going to get through this, will I be able to look back and say that I actually grew as a person? Was there anything positive, even at this stage, that I can take from this? Yes, there are many positive things, but the one positive thing I think that I actually took for granted was my health. Since we started with this, where we had to try and figure out how can we actually deal with COVID-19, I think one of the things in my personal life is that I started to focus on my health. Yes, I used to run a lot, but now it's not just running. I'm looking even at my eating habits. I'm looking at things like how can I do more than just maybe go 3 times a week to go and run. So yeah, I really appreciate my health at the moment. I'm actually very positive during this time. No fear, absolutely no fear. The reason why I say I have no fear is that I know fear will bring me actually nowhere. Fear will make me depressed, and fear will actually let me lose focus on what I'm supposed to do.
And that brings us to the end of the interview. Thanks for listening, and please do remember to share the episodes and relevant social media posts with your friends and family, and like the episodes at whichever social media platform you found them on. If you have any follow-up questions, head over to www.woodridge.co.za, where you will find the contact details for the school, and you can contact me at www.audioprojectcentral.com.